All right, it is 6 o'clock. I will call the June the 14th, 2022 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors to order. This evening we have Reverend Jonathan Hammond from the Holy Trinity Lutheran Church to provide the invocation. If you would, please stand and remain standing for the pledge.
Let us pray. Lord of all creation, in this beautiful place, we lift before you all who govern this county this night. May those who hold power understand that it is a trust from you to be used not for personal glory or profit, but for service of your people. Drive us from cynicism, selfishness, and corruption. Grant us your mercy, just and honest government, and give us your grace to live together in unity and peace. In your name we pray. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. See you next week.
All right, the first item on the agenda is citizens' time. Regular citizens' time, we've got one person signed up, Mr. Jerry Blevins. You'll come up and state your name in the microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes, Mr. Blevins.
Name is Jerry Blevins. Since I last spoke at your Board of Supervisors meeting, not much has changed as far as problems with my neighbor are concerned. The problems are less in scope and mostly confined to cyber events, but after almost 20 years of problems, even a small break means a lot. With the Secret Service employing 3,200 special agents, 1,300 uniformed officers, and 2,000 technical and professional as well as administrative personnel, that's a lot to go up against, but it shows whom I'm dealing with because no one else would have the technology. The neighbor I'm dealing with can just walk a few steps down the creek, then down the creek approximately 300 feet to my driveway, completely unseen and onto my property with the water leaving no tracks to follow. However, after nearly 20 years of doing this, it also rules out anyone else who might be a suspect, and the neighbor obviously has a lot of very advanced knowledge and can pick any lock, be it combination or keyed. Some of the things that have been done include putting water in the floorboard of my car, removing the cowling under the front car windshield and putting water in my air conditioner, rewiring 3-wire electric switches so they don't work correctly, letting air out of car or other vehicle tires, or outright putting something in the tires to flatten them, shutting down my security cameras so he won't be seen, loosening the oil bolts on my tractor and messing with the fuel filter so the fuel will leak, rewiring my lawnmower so it'll blow a fuse and not work properly, remove tailgate bolt from my utility trailer, replace good light bulbs for bad ones, removing fence panels to gain ingress and egress from the property, messing with the garage door opener so it won't work properly or not at all with the remote, turning power off or appliances off and on at will, messing with the television so it doesn't work properly or interfering with over-the-air and television signal, operating car or truck doors and windows at will, placing water in my lawnmower fuel tank, heating up my total car windshield so my dash cam will come loose, heating up the trim coil on the eaves of my storage building so paint will flake off, turning my security cameras off and on at will, messing with the concrete work done at Cripple Creek, electrically locking my car ignition switch so it won't operate properly, messing with gas pumps where the pumps will not come on, and shutting down car wash pumps so they would not work. The most interesting problem, however, was manually turning the normal idle switch on my generator to low idle for shutdown without any input from me. That took some cyber doing. Several of you have approached me with problems of your own and offered advice to me, which is very helpful, and I thank you for your support and advice. And thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins. All right, that's all we have signed up for the regular citizens' time, so I'll close citizens' time. The next item on the agenda is our public hearing for the proposed tax levy for calendar year 2022. Mr. Baird.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. What you have before you is, and if you'd like, I'll just read this announcement a little bit in brevity. But pursuant to Code Section 58.1 3007 of the Code of Virginia and amendments thereto, the Wythe County Board of Supervisors will conduct a public hearing Purpose of this public hearing is to give the citizens of Wythe County an opportunity to comment on the proposed tax levy for 2022. The proposed tax levies are tangible personal property, $2.22, a rate difference of 10 cents and a 10 cents lowered, which is a 4.3% change. Machinery and tools remaining at $1.50, and merchants' capital remaining at 56 cents. The proposed use of such taxes when and if appropriate by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors shall be to defray the county charges incidental and arising from the execution of the lawful authority of the Board of Supervisors of Wythe County, Virginia.
All right, we have one person signed up to speak. Since it is a public hearing, you'll have 5 minutes, and I believe is it Mr. Bryant Watson?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bryant Watson. My wife and I live at 105 Antler Drive in Wythe County. We moved here in 2016 from Vermont. Get down here where it's a little warmer. Not quite so much snow. Really, basically, I read the article that appeared in the Enterprise regarding the upcoming budget. And based upon the property reevaluation for the county, I guess I have a couple of questions. I haven't seen anywhere what the total grand list would be based on the reevaluation. So I kind of worked my figures backwards from the budget based on the increase that was listed in the paper of being 20.4%. But based on it, and based on the reevaluation of our property, and a reduction of 2 cents per hundred, from 54 to 52 cents per hundred, our taxes would go up approximately 24.8%. I worked back through, not knowing what the grand list was. I did come up with a figure for last year that allowed the collection of $12,100,000, and came up with, using that 20.4% increase, I came up with a tax rate that would raise the $12,200,000 of 46 cents per hundred, based on my calculations, based on what limited figures that I have been able to find. I did come up to the office last week, but I was unable to obtain the figures for the new revised grand list. So I had to back into it. But my calculations would show that the $12,200,000 would be able to be raised by 46 cents per hundred on the grand list. And I guess that's really all that I wanted to say tonight, and just trying to get a better handle on what our tax bill is going to be.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Watson. I will say that this public hearing was actually for personal property and the other tax rates. Last meeting, I went ahead and let you speak, but just let you know, in a reassessment year, we have to have totally separate public hearings, but we got your notes, so thank you. That's all we've got signed up, so I'll close citizens' time. Mr. Baird, do you have anything else on the proposed tax levy?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, nothing else on the proposed tax levy.
All right, next item is a public hearing for the proposed county and school board budget for fiscal year *23. And Mr. Baird, I'll turn it over to you as I try to find it in this package.
Pursuant to section 15.22506 of the Code of Virginia and amendments thereto, the Wythe County Board of Supervisors will conduct a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to give citizens the opportunity to comment on the proposed county budget, which includes the school board budget for fiscal year '22-23. public hearing will be held June 14, 2022 in the Board of Administration Building, 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia, at 6 p.m. The budget synopsis is prepared in public and published for information and fiscal planning purposes only. The inclusion in the budget of any item or items does not constitute an obligation on the part of the Board of Supervisors of Wythe County to appropriate any funds for that item or purpose. There is no allocation or designation of any funds of the county for any purpose until there has been an appropriation for that purpose by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors. The budget has been prepared on the basis of the estimates, requests, and submitted to the Board of Supervisors by the constitutional officers, intergovernmental agencies, non-governmental agencies, and department heads of Wythe County. And when reviewing amendments to those requests by the Board of Supervisors and staff. The total proposed expenditure budget for Wythe County for fiscal year '23 is $141,529,414. That is an increase of $55,953,082 over the previous year's budget, an increase of 65%. Included within this public hearing is also the public hearing for the school board budget. The school board budget for fiscal year '23 proposed budget is $80,426,751, and that represents a 59.87% increase in the school board budget. And that concludes my reading of the public hearing notice. Mr. Chairman, I can make some opening comments as well if you would like.
Well, we don't have anybody signed up to speak at the public hearing, so I'll close the citizens' time part of it, so go ahead.
Yeah, just was going to give some numbers on the budget, and just the fiscal year '23 budget represents a 56 million increase over the 85 million budget last year. 30 million of this increase comes from an increase in school expenditures, including the George Wythe High School Middle School project, of which the county has borrowed 12 million previously prior to the rise in interest rates. The school budget does not include an increase in local operational funds, but does include an increase of $205,000 in debt service. The next largest increase comes from capital improvement projects, which includes $7.8 million for the Fort Chiswell wastewater treatment plant expansion, which is estimated to have 75% grants covering it. $5.1 million for the Lots Gap water tank, which has received a $2.5 million grant, and is the balance of which is a split project with 80% funded by Wytheville and 20% by Wythe County. $3.8 million for the Barrett Mill water line project, which is a 50% grant, $1.9 million grant, and a $1.9 million loan at 1.5% for 40 years. $4.2 million for the Olive Branch water project, which Rural Development has not finalized grant and loan terms at this time. As our engineers provides that information to them, we will have it. And then $1 million for line replacement and $1 million for radio tower upgrades. And these items here have been the largest items in the capital improvements budget. The next largest increase for the budget is in public safety. Over $1 million of this increase is to provide funding for staffing 2 crews 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the eastern end of the county in conjunction with Lead Mines Rescue Squad. This will provide full-time pay and benefits to the responders and improve service levels. In addition, the budget includes funding the Joint Dispatch Center in excess of $400,000 to provide additional personnel for covering the increased call demand for our law enforcement, fire, and rescue services. And finally, as you are aware, the General Assembly has finally agreed to a budget and has been sent to the budget. Therefore, our budget and the school board's budget has been formulated on the best information we have had available to date. Once we receive the final budget within the next 2 weeks, we will know if any revisions are needed to make our state revenues and state revenue and expenditure related budgets. The late adoption of the state budget has made a challenging budget year for all localities across Virginia, Fortunately, it appears, though, that most of our assumptions were correct, and only minor changes will be needed made to the final budget.
Thank you, Mr. Baird. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Baird on the proposed budget? I will say, since you did mention the Scott project, prior to the meeting, Dr. Poole called me. They had their pre-bid conference today for the Scott project. He said it was very well attended, had 5 or 6 or 7 different contractors, but all the contractors in attendance did ask that the opening, or the deadline, I guess, for the bids be delayed till after the July 4th holiday because of the addendums that they'd put in the contract, and they want to get the, I guess, up-to-date pricing, I guess, materials and all that's still fluctuating, but he did seem positive with the interest from the contractors, so, because I think it was originally scheduled for June the 28th,
That sounds correct.
but, so they're gonna push it back if anybody wants to attend when they open the bids. He said he would send out the exact date when they finalized it. All right, anything else with the public hearing for the proposed county and school board budget? One thing, Mr. Baird, you said that within the next couple of weeks, y'all will be able to dissect the state budget and see if we need to
Assuming it's signed and back, we will see what changes are there, yes.
cross your fingers. All right, I'll close the public hearing and move on the agenda. The next item on our agenda is the payment of invoices. Each board member received a copy of the invoices in your board package, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the invoices. Have a motion by Mr. Cook. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any invoice that any board member wants to pull out and discuss?
Yes. I was looking at account number 461420. What is unclassified supplies again?
What page are you on, Mr. Burnett?
Oh, I've probably done scrolled way past it. I'm sorry.
I got too much going on over here. You gotta help me out.
Who was the vendor?
I can't remember. It was somebody's name. And it just popped out at me that it was unclassified supplies, and I couldn't remember what that was.
What number did you say it was?
61420.
Harold Street, okay, that's 110330 Harold Street. That is the Victim Witness Assistant Grant Program. And it's a state-funded grant, and there are categories within that grant that are for salaries and equipment and things like that. Unclassified supplies are the items that may not fall within those items that he gets to work in his job. I can, but that would be a reimbursement to him for an expense that he made for performance of his job in the sheriff's office.
Okay. I just forgotten what that.
Yeah.
He traveled to Richmond for an awards presentation, maybe related to that. He received an award from the Attorney General's office, and that may be related to the travel.
Good question.
All right, does anybody else have any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Next item on our agenda excuse me, is the minutes of our previous meeting for May the 24th, 2022. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any discussion on the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye. Aye.
I'll abstain, I was absent.
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item on the agenda is old business. We have some appointment vacancies. Mr. Baird, do we have anybody?
No, sir, we do not. There's one individual that is potentially someone's talking to, but we do not have any names at this time.
All right, we'll move on to new business. We have the Fort Chisholm South Sewer Extension.
I assume before I would speak that Mr. Smith would make the motion to go ahead and approve this. But this is the engineering agreement to get the design work done for extending sewer from the Fort Chisholm High School area down towards the Long Meadows subdivision.
All right. I'll open the floor up for Mr. Smith to make a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any more discussion or questions on this project?
Mr. Byer, if we can, I know that we had talked about trying to get it to the Long Meadows.
Yeah.
I know that there's some new property owners down there, about 15 lots,
Yes, sir.
so.
Just became aware of that 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So, yes.
What's the distance? I mean, it's not much, is it?
It's,
Maybe a quarter, I don't know if it's a quarter of a mile.
it's not listed on here. It's, I would say between a quarter and a half a mile.
Maybe,
Yeah.
yeah. Just go around the curve.
It basically goes down to the Church of God down there. That would be, that general area down there would be where the, a pump station would be.
With it being a housing development, I assume that's what they're looking at.
This would be yeah,
Is
the
there-
first line would get down to that area and would pick up the trailer park, our rescue squad building and the building below and the church down below and maybe a couple homes down through there. It would also pick up the Scott's Church. Mormon Church, down through there.
But
Pick
with
up
it
those
being,
customers.
with it being a potential housing development, there should be some grant money out there if we want to
Yeah.
extend it.
And then that's, the next part goes up to where some housing development is looked at, and we'll need to work with the developers on that part. This is just phase one of it, to get it down through there, take care of some issues. And then with the, changing in hands of the ownership of the Long Meadows lot, we need to look and see if there's any funding that may be available, with the developer or others for trying to get sewer up there.
So the one landowner that I've been talking to, where phase two will come back, or phase three, I forget which one it is. I told him he needed to be working with the Mount Rogers planning group to see if there was any funds
That's what I was.
could help him out there. I know you had mentioned it a while back, so I think he's working with the engineer now on the road that has to be put in there.
We are definitely going to need additional housing, and this is a good area where it's in close proximity to our water and sewer. It's been a plan that's been actually looked at for several years now.
All right, does anybody else have any questions on the project? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item is our Progress Park Rail project. We have a revised change order number 1.
Yes, sir. We had previously talked about this, and we had a preliminary change order that did not have full information on it. This is the 2 turnouts on the line that's running to Lot 24 for $195,000. I believe the previous change order was $185,000. This is within our budgeted funds, and staff's recommendation is approval of this change order.
All right, entertain a motion to approve the revised change order number 1.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Lawson, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Cook. Is there any questions or discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye. Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I might, I am working with Norfolk Southern. I actually had a conversation with them today. They had originally expressed a desire to have additional track up there. If y'all may remember when we were originally talking Blue Star project, we were actually talking about potential for 3 tracks up there. We have received the change order amount to add an additional rail track. It exceeds our budgeted funds, and I have shared that information with Norfolk and Southern to see if we may be able to have a partnership. I think it would be beneficial to their operations and at all 3 of our factories up there for them to have that additional runaround track. They are trying to get that worked out as quickly as possible. So I have a change order too. I shared it with the Economic Development Committee, but I told them we are not ready to move forward to until we see if we have some financial support from Norfolk Southern. But just want to let you all know that that's in the works up there.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. Next item is Gov Deals Vehicle Auction. I believe Ms. Collins gave everybody a, excuse me, list of our latest surplus vehicle auction. Do we need to declare these as surplus and approve the bids? Mr.
Staff would
Barry?
recommend declaring these surplus and accepting these bids and authorizing Ms. Collins to sign all necessary paperwork.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to declare these vehicles as surplus, accept the bids, and authorize Ms. Collins to execute the paperwork.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Burnett. Is there any questions or discussion?
That's quite a deal on that caravan.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Collins, this is as is where he is, correct? Then I would agree with you, Mr. Cook, that is a heck of a deal for us. All right, anybody else have anything on that? Here none, we'll do a roll call vote for Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Aye.
I feel guilty, but
Aye.
so approved. I hope they got a tow truck.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the board approve transferring of the receipts received for the fire truck money directly into our fire department vehicle account that we have. That way we can put that money back towards the next set of vehicles.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to take the proceeds from the 2 fire departments and transfer them into our,
Fire Department Equipment Reserve Fund.
that.
I'll make- So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Lawson, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Cook. Is there any questions or discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Right, next item on.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
I apologize for interrupting. May I add something under new business, please, sir?
Yes, sir.
I want to discuss the Sheriff's Department request for the 1.85 VRS multiplier. I think most of us on this board has ran in support of our Sheriff's Office, our fire departments, and our rescue squad and their personnel. And we've discussed it, but we've never made a decision on it. And I think, based on the information I've reviewed and some conversations with the sheriff, that this is an excellent program and an excellent opportunity to serve 2 purposes. I think it will help with a recruitment tool and a retention tool for our law enforcement officers. And I would love to see us take an action on this and try to see if we can help those folks out. We've made huge financial gains and investments in our pay scales and our personnel, but we haven't done a whole lot directly related to personnel for the Sheriff's Office, and I think this is an excellent opportunity for minimal impact to the actual budget based on the figures that it costs to provide that program. And so I would like, if it's acceptable, I would like to make a motion to, that we vote on this. If I may, please, sir.
All right, Mr. Bear, I know we discussed it during our budget. Of course, myself and Ms. Lawson are conflicted out, but. what
Yeah,
we need to do-
I'd be glad to, we discussed it during budget, and there were a couple of things, and what I understood what y'all decided to do. There was a discussion about moving the 2,500 that had been given as a hazardous duty supplement, to move that into salary to help with it to BRS, and that's how we ran the budget. We moved all of that into salary, and not doing the 1.85. Just to ask for concurrence, if we're going to the 1.85, are we gonna take the 2,500 back to a stipend, or are we going to leave that in as part of the salary? Because I think part of the discussion was, were we going to do one or the other, and maybe look at doing the other the next year? And then, secondly, we'll talk about that in other, what we will do, that will mean that we will have to go back and revise all of the budgets, because that changes the VRS multiplier from 10.84 that we're at right now to 11 point something. I don't remember the change, but you've had the public hearing, but we can change that in the budget. But that would change on all the department's budget, that would change that salary increase. So it can be done. We'll just have to run the numbers and show you the numbers.
I think it was an extra 50, wasn't it, for both of them? It was 39 for.
It was gonna cost about, it was somewhere in that $40,000 range, if I remember correctly.
It was, what, mid-40s, right?
Yeah, for across the board, the increase of the, we're going from the 1.7 multiplier to the 1.85. It's like 40,000, and that's not a one-time event, just make sure everybody understands that every year you're paying the higher multiplier.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I got to looking at everybody else that's giving bonuses and got to rethinking, all this, and people giving retention bonuses, hiring bonuses, all this stuff, and we're losing deputies or having difficult times filling positions. I think we have to do something. I know it's not ideal to increase the budget over what it already is, but, I mean, we have to try to keep these, or recruit either way, if you wanna look at it. I mean, you got all these businesses in the county and outside the counties giving $1,000 up to $3,000 for somebody to come on board, and all you gotta do is work a year, and you get that money, and then they can leave and go somewhere else and get $3,000 more. So I think we need to look at that as well. So, it is gonna be an increase in the budget, but we gotta look at taking care of our citizens with not having vacancies in the patrol. And again, that's just my opinions.
Well, I abstain. I just have a simple question about the budget. I don't care how you all vote for the sheriff's office, but are you all discussing that coming out of the PAF or county? Just out of curiosity for budget purposes.
For me, I think it needs to come out of county funds instead of coming out of their activity funds.
In my opinion, there is not a good way to break this out of coming out of county funds. This would be strictly out of PAF funds. This, because it hits every county employee's department, and there's not a way to go back and calculate that differential every year to put back and charge that to the PAF. This would just be an amount that would just be hitting the general budget and coming out of the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
The 1.1, or the 1 point increase.
The 1.85% multiplier.
The $2,500 being added in, that we said came out of the
Yeah,
PAF.
the 2,500 has always come out of the PAF. By moving it into the salary, we said that the additional cost associated to moving it into the salary would come out of the PAF. And that, I want to say, was around $10,000 or so, something like that.
That sounds right.
I'm just making certain we know which way to do it in the budget.
But total, it was like mid-40s, almost 50, I think.
I think
right?
around 50,000.
Yeah, it was 50.
Say 50, just round it up to 50.
40 for the 1 point, moving it to 11, and then it was 10 for the 2,500 being added to the VRS.
Okay.
And I kinda thought we agreed on the 10 for the PAF and then the 1 point whatever coming out of our county funds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good either way on that. I think we did, that's what we did talk about, so.
I mean, it's a roll of dice. I mean,
It is a good benefit, absolutely, for them, so.
I mean, I don't know whether that's gonna keep people or not, you know, but you're right, we gotta do something.
And the
Give
25,
Stacy a chance to get an extra raise, he might get a higher retirement, he might retire tomorrow.
He's like, I wish.
I was hoping.
Yeah, that
I
would
just
also
hope we
be the
don't,
challenge.
we don't
out
have
of
all
it.
our senior officers retire when they get
Yeah,
the
that's,
higher rate.
I mean, that is a risk,
That's a
right?
possibility.
But yeah, I think the motion and the second, as I understand it, is to proceed with the 1.85% multiplier for the sheriff, which means we just have to go back, because VRS gave us, and if I remember correctly, as long as we told them by July 1st, we could implement that. We just have to change our VRS multiplier, our VRS employee rate for next year.
All right, you said motion and second. Did we have a motion and a second?
I made the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, second.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay, sir.
I was just clarifying to make certain I was clear on everything.
So we have a motion and a second or a motion by Mr. Terry and a second from Mr. Smith. Do you, Mr. Barrett, do you need any clarification on what the motion was?
I think I'm good. The motion is to increase the sheriff's office multiplier to 1.85% and make the necessary changes to our budget
Yes,
to
sir.
implement that.
Yes, sir.
And that's effective July 1st,
Correct.
22.
Yes,
And
sir.
I apologize, I'm conflicted out, I kinda zoned out in the conversation. All right, is there any more discussion or questions on the motion on the floor?
yes, the $2,500,
Yes.
that would go back to their hazard pay, is that what I understood?
Oh, that's clear. I think what the $2,500 was previously just a stipend, hazard pay. So we'll use the new sheriff's department, employees. The new salary this year is supposed to be $42,000. From what the budget, as I understand, is $42,000 for a sheriff's deputy starting pay. Previously, that deputy would have earned $42,000 as VRS earned income, and they would get paid a $2,500 stipend for hazard duty pay. What is in the budget is moving that $2,500 into their salary. So a starting deputy salary will be $44,500. And as I understand this motion, that is not changing that. We are still leaving the $2,500 in the salary and also increasing the multiplier to the 1.85%.
Very good, thank you.
That,
Yep, answer
Okay.
the question.
All right, is there any more questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook,
Aye.
Abstain.
abstain.
Aye.
All right, so approved. Anything else under new business? All right, we'll move on to board reports. First is our budget committee.
The Budget Committee met on June 8, 2022, and recommends the following: to amend and appropriate $3,000 to account 32021-461400, repairs and maintenance for additional repair bills for Byron Springs Fire Department.
Right, coming from a committee, it doesn't need a second. Mr. Baird, is there any explanation on this, or Mr. Hankton?
We've had one of our rescue squads and two of our fire departments that are right up against their budget. A lot of it's coming from either repairs or the increase in fuel costs, and both Barron Springs and Ivanhoe are affected by that. Ivanhoe's a little more affected by having to outfit 2 new trucks. This year, they had to buy some additional equipment to outfit those 2 new trucks. So both are right up against their budgets, and to get through June, we suggest $3,000 is an appropriate amount.
All right. Is there any more questions or discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
To amend and appropriate $3,000 to account 32022-461400 repair and maintenance for additional repair bills for Ivanhoe Fire Department.
Again, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that one? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Authorizing Rural Retreat Rescue Squad to spend $27,169.70 from their current budget to purchase a striker monitor system to replace an obsolete unit.
Right, is there any questions or discussion on that one? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Cook.
Aye.
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 So approved.
To amend and appropriate $2,145 to account 43048-443020 repair and maintenance for repairs needed to the buildings and grounds truck.
Is there any questions or discussion on that recommendation?
I would just comment that we anticipate recouping some of that from additional claims with the insurance company. But in order to get our books balanced for the end of the fiscal year, we need to go ahead and amend this amount.
Does that lead to any questions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
To transfer $7,000 from salaries to the office support for the Extension Office Summer 4-H programming.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Go ahead.
Committee discussed this and recommended that I talk to Mr. Miller about this. Part of it, some of these events do not take place until later in the year. And Mr. Miller's here, can answer any questions. After talking to him, I think the best course of action would be to look at, and they're looking at having $9,000 or $10,000 or so left over in this fiscal year's budget. The more prudent course may be to look at carrying that over and then actually only expend up to that amount for the actual expenses instead of trying to guesstimate what's going to be there by the end of the fiscal year. So I would recommend not approving or just withdrawing the motion on this action and doing it as a carryover when we're doing the carryover sewer. And it's for the 4-H program, and Mr. Miller, I'll let you jump in for that, but basically for the projects for the kids.
Sure. Good evening. Some months back, I talked to Stephen. Our budget that you guys approved for us fiscally is almost all personnel. So that's just myself, our 4-H agent, our commercial horticulture agent. In August of 21, Kelsey Grimes left our office, and that position sat vacant until January. And because of that, then you guys weren't billed, and obviously Virginia Tech didn't pay either, but you guys weren't billed what would amount to $9,700. So what I'd asked Stephen for is that we could use $7,000 of that to support summer activities for youth. But Stephen's right, some of those events will take place in July, some of them will take place in August. So his idea, and I think a good one, would be to ask to carry forward $7,000 of what would be the $9,700. And then we just invoice per event to Stephen and Regina. So if it's camp scholarships, so our 4-H camp is the end of July. If, let's say there's 5 camp scholarships, if that was in full, that'd be almost $1,000. But if we had 5 camp scholarships, we could invoice for 5 camp scholarships against that $7,000, but it would be based on the carry forward instead of having you guys just appropriate that money direct to our office. That would be cleaner for us. It makes it cleaner for you guys. If anybody ever asks, it's clear exactly what that stuff was used for. It could be van rentals, it could be event rentals, it could be travel, it could be all types of things. But there's about, and Stephen's right, I mean, we're gonna come in obviously under budget anyway, because that 6-month lag, to err on the side of caution, I'm asking for $7,000. I think it's easily $9,700 plus that won't be expensed. The other additional piece to that, if it helps your mind, because of personnel hiring and people with more seniority, the exiting person was making more than the entering person. So in the budget you approved in 21-22, because of that lag and the new person, we're also expending less for that personnel. So it's gonna be more than $9,700 savings. I can't tell you how much more, but it'll be more than that.
Matthew, on the 4-H camp scholarships, how much, I mean, do you have a number you're looking at doing, or is it gonna be a need-based?
It's need-based. They do a scholarship. Some of them it's partial, some of them it's full. Usually it's partial. Usually it's half. This year we camp with Tazewell County. Roughly that camp will have 225 kids, of which half of them will be with county kids. Camp cost is over $200 now, so some kids will apply and they'll get half of their camp costs covered. Could be $100. Rarely is it a full scholarship, but on a couple times it's a full scholarship. Sometimes we'll have kids from a family, it might be 4 or 5 kids in a family, that all those kids go to camp. And they'll apply for a partial scholarship. Obviously, if you had 4 or 5 kids, you're looking at $1,000 plus to send them to camp for a week. Our new 4-H agents would like to do a horse clinic, which would be good. They're looking at kind of a 4-H awards banquet recognition, public recognition thing in August. So some of that money could be expensed for that as well. But I think carry forward would be cleaner. It'd be easier for us to send those invoices versus trying just to lump sum move it and then not have clarity on what that money was used for. Obviously, it's a move from personnel, which is what you guys appropriated it for in 21-22, to more activities which would pertain to 4-H. My mindset is, obviously, because we had that personnel leave and we were still kind of in a COVID situation last fall, there's a lot of things that kids didn't get the opportunity to do. Ideally, if we'd paid that personnel, that's part of what that person should have been doing. Obviously, we didn't have that person there. So if we could use that money to do some of that in the summer of this summer and early fall, that was the goal.
So I just withdraw that one, sir.
I'd recommend motion to withdraw that one.
Sorry. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw that.
All right, have a
Committee
motion to
recommendation.
withdraw the budget committee recommendation as previously presented.
Sorry, I'll second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And you'll,
I was going, if you, Ms. Williams, help me remember, but if you'll just send me another memo requesting to carry that over those activities, that'll help us make sure we get that in
And I
the
think,
list for carrying.
for clarity, I think you guys are sort of like we are too. Our billing, fiscal billing actually is going to end at the end of this week.
Yeah.
So when we really look at fiscal year 22, 23, if it's late June, it's really going to be into that
It's next year,
carryover.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, that'd be great.
and will you follow up with us after your, I guess, 4-H season, and just let us know what the money went for?
Yeah, and I
You
think,
go to school board meetings, and they have kids come up and, tell them about projects and stuff. We never get that.
we'd love to do it.
We'd
So,
like
I
a little
mean,
good news every now
I
and
don't
then.
know if,
I mean,
I don't know how much time you wanted to devote to it, but we can certainly make that work.
yeah, I mean, you can bring
Fairly
some up
regular
here, it's
basis.
just,
That'd be good.
as simple as, shoot
I'll
us
put
an
in a-
email and let us know what
Well,
happened.
I'll put in a quick plug. It's not the kids, but we'll get them in here first year. The end of this month, I think it's the 29th, we'll be in the running for probably their 5th consecutive state championship in the livestock judging competition in the state of Virginia. That'll probably be 250, 300 kids. I'll get them to come. They're better spokespeople than I are, but you've got a group of kids here in the county that 2 of them were on the national team last year that were runner-up at the national competition in Louisville. But this group of kids has won stuff in 12 eastern states in the United States. So I'd love to get them to come. That'd be good. We'll get them on the agenda. But I think, to your point, Brian, and I think a good one, if we invoice it the way Stephen suggested, that will help
Yeah.
validate what you guys are doing.
And I'm sorry, I do not remember her name. What's the new lady's name?
Mallory
Mallory.
Whitehurst, yes,
Yeah, I know Mr. Burnett got to meet her at
May Day.
May Day and spent some time with her. I'd like to get her in here just to introduce her to you
Oh,
all.
that'd be
so.
great.
That'd be good.
I was very impressed.
She was very impressed with your horses.
All right,
All
thank you,
right.
sir.
Thank you, and I'll get that to you, Stephen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
3 more items, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
To amend and appropriate an additional $178,725 in local matching funds for the Children's Service Act.
All right, come to committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that one? We should all be well versed in that by now. All right, do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
No.
Aye.
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 So approved.
To use funds remaining in this year's budget to begin paying full personnel in arrears. I was worried about that word, by the way. Because when Mr. Bear spelled it, that's a long story, but this will have no impact on the employee's annual pay. This will result in additional pay periods showing on the books for accounting purposes in fiscal year 2020 and is estimated at $261,376. The recommendation includes authorizing the county administrator to transfer funds between organization departments, 2020 budgets to cover this expense.
All right, Mr. Barry, you won't need to explain any of that.
I'll be glad to explain, and please do not hesitate to ask questions. Ms. Williams and I have been working with our auditor over the last few weeks reviewing this. Currently, our full-time employee pay is current. So our employees get paid on tomorrow, June 15th, for work completed up through June 15th. This is full-time employees. Part-time employees are always based on their hours worked, and so they turn in their hours worked up to a certain time, and you pay them on the pay period. It creates a couple of issues. Number one, when, not a big issue, but like when you start somebody on the 27th, technically, you need to add them for 3 days of pay to be paid on the 30th. Now, typically, we just hold that out until the 15th, because you can't get it. But the second case is you have a full-time employee that may not have been there very long, may not have any annual leave or sick leave. They leave on the 27th. You've already submitted the payment to the bank for their payment, and they owe you 3 days of pay back. So you got to send in the letter to try to get, 3 days back from them and go through that whole process. Most all companies end up paying in arrears, in the process. But you certainly do not want to not pay employees for 2 weeks to get yourself in arrears. So basically, you end up, we will pay the June 15th payroll, as it is right now. The June 30th payroll would be to, once again, pay for the June 15th payroll as it was, but you would start paying the full-time employees in arrear. And then on July 1st, they're getting paid for the June 30th payroll. Employee sees no impact on it whatsoever. They do not see, a increase in their salary. All it is from an accounting perspective, we have to account for that one additional payroll in the fiscal year to get it to where it's paying in arrears. Pulaski County has just gone through this. Other localities have gone through this. It makes it much preferred on the financial side to put that in place. And so what we would do with the unspent funds remaining in this year's budget, we would allocate that when our Ms. Williams and our accounting firm that assists us comes back, they will be allocating that additional pay period into this fiscal year, and we just need to have the funds to cover it. So it's no additional appropriation, it's just using the leftover funds for this year to account for that. Does that leave any questions? Everybody understand that?
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, no questions. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
The committee recommends that the full board discuss the potential implementation of a limited time recruitment bonus for county employees successfully assisted in recruiting of 911 personnel.
Mr. Hankins?
As Mr. Smith just pointed out, there are companies that are paying bonuses for employees. We are going to have some savings in our 911 budget this year because we've been down so many personnel all year. And we'll be addressing some of the overtime costs that has created as part of our year-end budget wrap on the 30th. Certainly not something that has to be done, but the question that I posed is do you want to offer a limited bonus until we get those additional 7 or 8 positions filled that are currently vacant? And if so, what would that amount be?
Well-
We think our employees are our best recruiters. You know, they can tell folks what our workplace culture is like. They know the work, so they know people who would have the temperament for that. It's just, trying to think out of the box a little so that we can, try to get some of those extra folks in. And I didn't want to limit it to just dispatch employees, but, any employee who can help recruit and keep somebody here through their probationary period would be helpful.
Mr. Bear covered that when we were having our public hearing about the budget and part of the reason that our budget's increased this year is because of, increased money going into the 911 center. And what a lot of people don't realize is pretty soon, we have to state mandated go to emergency medical dispatch, which means we have to have dispatchers that are trained to give medical advice over the phone. Call me crazy, but I think we need well-qualified people in those positions. The days of Wythe County 911, what's your address? Yeah, I'll send the fire truck or an ambulance. Those days are,
Call back if they don't show up.
and, yeah. And I know Mr. Hankins has been around emergency services. The ambulance used to come to your house and snatch you up and drive you real fast to the hospital and pray you stay alive by the time they got there. Well, now they're starting IVs, they're pushing medication. I mean, it's a lot different. Again, call me crazy, but I think we need well-qualified people doing these jobs. So, I don't have a problem with it on a limited time basis. And, like you said, our employees know the temperament that it takes, the skill set that it takes to answer those calls. And, I mean, we've tried social media, we've tried everything. That's where I'm at. I don't have a number, but.
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Hankins, that's if they're hired on and they make it through a probationary period, correct?
That's what I would suggest. You can't show up, quit 2 weeks later having collected a bonus for your friend, and I just don't want to see that happen. We need to have folks who make it through the probationary period
What is that,
successful.
90 days or
It's 6 months,
6 months? Gotcha.
assuming everything goes as it should.
Gotcha. Well, do you have a recommendation of a figure? Because honestly, I wouldn't even know where to start with that.
It would be an entirely different recommendation if we were looking for 1 or 2 people. I would even broach the subject with you, but we're probably looking for 8 right now. Certainly, I think, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 would be an attention-getting bonus for our staff, if they recruit somebody.
$500 won't get you a tank of gas right now.
If you've got a different figure, then, certainly 1,000 will get your attention more than 500.
And I say that jokingly, but, I'm leaning more toward 1,000 because how many people have SUVs? And honestly, it's 85 bucks to fill it up. God forbid you have a diesel. So, you know, you're looking at a bonus has just become 4 tanks of gas. I mean, at $500. So,
Well, looking at what some of the recruitment bonuses are for some of the private industry, you know, $1,500 is a pretty common number with some of the private industries that are using bonuses for recruitment.
we've got a work session tomorrow night with VDOT. You want to have Mr. Hankins put some numbers together?
I think if it's $1,000 and we're looking at 8 vacancies right now, I mean, you're looking at $8,000 to $10,000 next year.
Well, we've got that. Do we have that in
We could-
vacancy savings?
We'll have enough money this year that we could carry money over that we could put in a line item for retention, whatever we want to call it, retention things, and just put that amount in there, whether it's $10,000 or $15,000, and, you know, we stop it at a point where we say we need to stop it.
We're looking at a bonus for like our employees, talking someone into coming to work for the county. It's for our current employees.
Correct.
Not for the ones that we're hiring.
Right.
Right. This would-
I was gonna say, I mean, the school board kinda did something like that with bus drivers, because they had a thing, and I wanna say it was $200 or $300, but it was like $200 or $300 for a current driver, and then the new driver got an extra $200 or $300 bonus after they drove so many runs too.
I was gonna say, you could say 500 if they make it 6 months, and then the other 500 if they make it a year.
But I think the easy, and I
You
hate
trying
to
to
say
get
easy
somebody
thing.
kidnapped?
No, I just don't want to do all this and put $8,000 into it, and then 6 months from now, we're in the same spot, because our pay isn't as competitive as other places, and we're right back to the same issue, so it's a great idea. I just hope it fixes the problem, because, I mean, we're desperate.
We are, we're wearing our current staff out.
Yeah.
We, you know, the ones that are trying to take vacation, you know, we're having some conflicts over, you know, having enough coverage, you know, for the time that they would be on vacation. So it's wearing everybody out.
So, I understand.
Do you recommend we put $10,000 in it and see what we can do with it?
I think that's something we can work with, yes, sir.
I think Ryan's got a great idea with 500 to 500, 500 in 6 months, 500 at a year. I think that's,
I mean, it's a crazy idea, but I guess the whole point of it is to recruit, not retain, even though we want to retain. I don't know.
If you want to give us a figure, we can give you a proposal on how to structure it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the first step is we gotta move some money around, is what I'm hearing, correct?
Yeah, I think what I'd do, if, and Matt, add anything in here, but like, I would just make a motion to have staff draft a policy for, it sounds like $1,000 is what we're talking about, for $1,000 bonus incentive program. And if you want it 500 in 6 months, or 500 a year, if you want 1,000 in 6 months. And, to include $10,000 in next year's budget, to do so.
I like the 5 and 5 thing. That's pretty good.
10,000 sounds good to me. I agree to that.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to have staff draw a proposal with you wanna say a limit of $10,000?
Yep, put a $10,000 retention fund.
Hopefully it'll be 8.
If we can change that to recruitment, that would be.
Recruitment, that's good, recruitment fund.
All right, I'll entertain that motion.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Lawson. Do I
Second.
have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any more discussion or questions?
One question that you might get, just, I wouldn't limit the number of bonuses that somebody could get paid. If somebody wants to hustle and get out there and find us, you know, those 8 people that we need, and make that extra $8,000, I wouldn't limit them from that opportunity.
We get 8 great dispatchers that they can recruit. or
I don't care who
anyone they
gets
want.
the money, as long as we got people,
Yeah.
good people on the other end of the phone. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye.
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 So approved.
That's all from the Budget Committee, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Economic Development Committee.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The Economic Development Committee, we met on June the 8th, 2022, and we recommend authorizing the JIDA to make application for matching funding from the Virginia Agriculture and Forestry Department Fund for Project Jersey. The grant application will be for $2,500, with Wythe County providing matching funds of $19,000.
Local industry is trying to expand operations. This provides them with a matching grant that will assist them, and our share of the grant is based upon return on investment that the JIDA has provided us for additional income to come from that.
All right.
For any questions, we can go into closed session if anyone would like to.
Now, I just got a question on the recommendation, and I may still have vacation brain.
You do, it's an extra zero there.
The grant application will be for $2,500, and we provide $19,000.
That should be 25,000. Thank you for correcting that, sir.
Okay, because I'm like, that don't seem like a real good deal to me. And I'll give Mr. Terry credit, he read it exactly the way it was written. So, all right, so with the amendment of $25,000 coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 So approved. Anything else from the Economic Development Committee?
That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Next item on our agenda is the Board of Supervisors time. We'll start with Mr. Cook.
I just wanted to wish the Army a happy birthday. June 14th is the Army's birthday. Publicly wish the Army a happy birthday. Other than that, I have nothing, sir.
All right, Mr. Cook, and along with that, we thank you for your U.S. Army service
Thank you, sir.
here on Flag Day. Mr. Burnett?
I just had two items. One was we talked about the Jet Lane meetings with the citizens. Is there any movement on that,
I know that Ms. Castle was looking at some dates. I'll have to follow up and see.
To my knowledge, she has not scheduled a date yet. She had some potential dates from the school as when we could use the space, but we're going to have to pick that banner up and run with it with some staff changes we have pending.
And the next one is the property tax exemption for the elderly. Where are we at on?
We have looked at that. We met with the commissioner and the treasurer. We have, Mr. Hankins pulled some of the numbers, and I think Ms. Castle previously pulled some of the numbers of what the rates are, and of what surrounding localities have for the rates they give and others. We're going to put all those together for one of the committees of the board to review and look at, and see if you want to make any changes to those. We are actually still within the range of most all of our surrounding counties. The information requested, though, is still, in order to qualify, is not going to be able to relieve the applicants for requesting or from supplying information to deem that they are eligible. But we will look at it and see if we want to increase the amount of relief that we can provide to the citizens.
Thank
We'll get those numbers finalized and brought to you all for review.
Thank you very much. That's it.
All right, Ms. Lawson?
I don't have anything at this time. I give Mr. Smith my time.
Mr. Smith's got a PowerPoint over
I
here.
got eight.
I don't even want
eight-
to call on him.
8 pages. of-
All right, go ahead, Mr.
No.
Smith.
It's not that much. Mr. Byer, going on what Mr. Burnett said, Mr. Jones was calling about his mother and the tax and the water. Did we get that information to them?
I will follow up. I know that they got in touch with them to talk about it. I know they had previously talked to them about it. I will see if they've got the information back in from them to give the credit on that
All
water.
right. Thank you, sir. Second item is Apache Run. Do we have a timeline on when that's gonna start?
No, I do not, but I will see what I can get on that.
Okay. And then the last thing I got is, I had a parent express some concerns about a Sandlot game on last Thursday. There was no umpires, the field wasn't aligned, and the folks that came to actually do it had some attitudes toward the parents, the two teams. They was real frustrated. They were saying if the games are scheduled, they should have knew that they needed somebody there, and it delayed them. I think a lot of the parents had to step in to help this game on with the fifth graders, so kind of, there's some upset parents about that.
Baseball?
Baseball was out at Adrian. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Horning.
I had some VDOT issues, but I've contacted VDOT, so we'll let that go until I find out if they're correcting the problems.
All right, Mr. Terry.
Just a couple things, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Huntley said thank you. Mr. Berry got in touch with the VDOT, and they've apparently done a little bit of work down on Pepper's Ferry with the potholes. And I just wanted to follow up. When Ms. Stewart come, I believe our last meeting, and had discussed and addressed concerns with the treasurer's office. Have we had any follow-up from her or with her at this point?
I have not any follow-up, but I will follow up with the treasurer and see if that issue has been resolved. I had spoken with her before she actually came into the board meeting and
Awesome,
addressed a lot of
okay.
her concerns on that time. So,
Perfect. And that's all I've got, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. I've just got one thing. I don't know if y'all seen it today or not, but Blue Star, I guess a month or so ago, I talked about the industrial maintenance training program that the Wythe County schools had implemented. Dr. James done that presentation about how they could go to WCC their senior year. Blue Star announced today that, they've partnered with WCC with this industrial maintenance training program. It's actually gonna start, in the fall, this fall. And there's financial assistance out there for people that wanna enroll in the program. If you know anybody that's, looking to get into industrial maintenance, and I think we discussed it before, it's a sought after position. They make good money, but, they can go to, Blue Star's website, bluestarcareers.com. They got a Get Qualified link that you can sign up, to see if you're qualified for the, training / financial assistance, but, it's pretty exciting for a lot of upcoming high school seniors or anybody that's middle-aged like me and contemplating a career change.
Can we go back and vote on that police, retirement thing?
I'll tell you right now, I'm not eligible to retire, or I already have. That's how y'all will know when I'm eligible. It won't be a surprise. I heard what you said, Mr. Smith. But that's all I have. Anybody else have anything? Mr. Barrett,
no, sir.
Mr. Hankins?
Just to mention, we talked about rail earlier. We finally have our paperwork complete with the Department of Rail and Public Transportation, so we've been given notice to proceed so we can spend their money.
All right, Ms. Collins, you have anything? All right, hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to recess until, oh, Mr. Farthing, I'm
I do not have anything, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
sorry. And I apologize, I'm on vacation, still. But mentioning Mr. Farthing, I did talk to Delegate Campbell / Attorney Campbell, and and I don't know if you've heard this, Scott, but he said that some of the opioid lawsuit settlement checks are.
I got an email, at the end of last week, so I need to find, Stephen asked me about that yesterday, and I didn't feel like it's been swamped. My other attorney went out, and I've been trying to, I'll try to get that to you tonight or in the morning.
I don't know what the timeline.
I don't remember what it said, I didn't really open it, I just read the first couple lines, thinking I'll read that later, and I didn't get to it.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to recess until tomorrow at 6 PM for a VDOT work session.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith, do I have a second?
Is that correct time?
Huh?
We were just discussing earlier that we had 5:30, but this says 6, so 6.
And the 6 is when VDOT is coming, 5:30 was for talking about the budget items. If y'all still want to come at 5:30 and discuss any of the budget things, we didn't have a whole lot of
5:30.
comments from tonight, so.
I don't care.
Can we make it 10? That way I can plant corn till it gets dark.
I'm in bed, but.
5:30 sounds good to me. Is that good?
I'm fine with
And
5:30.
VDOT may come in and set up while we're doing this, and that, I don't have any problem with that.
Okay.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Smith to recess until 5:30 tomorrow. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll be in recess.